Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple: to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So, stay with us as right now we present an awesome show for you today. We've got a couple of fine ladies, and we are covering the entire country, all the way from Seattle, Washington, where two of us are, to down in the Keys in Florida, and Jennifer and Blair are with me, and they both are authors of a brand new book that is coming out. I think it comes out this week.
Today.
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 Yeah. Kindle version released today.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about the book. We're going to talk about Behind the Power. We're going to talk about animal communication, and we're going to talk about healthy living through food. I can't think of a wider variety of topics to cover, but it'll be fun to do. So, and if there are people that are showing up to say hello, as an example, Mr. Cole, and by the way, Mr. Cole, your episodes have done very, very well.
Nice.
Don't forget about little me, and anyway, and Dr. Marnie is here as well. We're going to start off by talking a little bit about hurricanes, because Dr. Marnie lives in your neck of the woods, Blair, and way down. I think she is. I can't remember which country she's in, but it's in the Caribbean, and so
okay.
But you survived the hurricane, and it missed you. Is that correct?
It did, Kevin. So the Florida Keys is a 100-mile long chain of islands. And so it's very interesting. Our schools were closed for 3 days. Schools up in Key Largo and the northern part of the island chain were completely unaffected. But because Key West was definitely affected, and that's about an hour southwest of us, there was a lot of flooding down there. But here in the Middle Keys, we were not affected. We were very, very fortunate to have been missed by Ian's destruction.
And I tell you, we've seen the pictures. I think everybody's probably seen the pictures at this point, but it's the devastation that brought to where it hit is nothing short of amazing. People were just, houses just disappeared.
We have friends who used to live here, and they're up on Sanibel, and you know, in Florida, it's not uncommon for your homes to be silted, and the high water line reached the floor of their home, and it's unreal to think about the one road access to the island where you're living being completely wiped out. And kudos to the utility teams and construction teams that have rebuilt the bridges to, I believe it was Sanibel, but yeah. Homes completely gone, buildings just completely wiped away, washed out to sea. It's an emotional experience. I know for a lot of people here in the Keys, it's brought, you know, we just looked at the 5-year anniversary of Hurricane Irma, which was very devastating for the Middle and Lower Keys 5 years ago. So that with Ian passing that close, it brought up a lot of PTSD for a lot of residents and business owners and people here in the Keys. So yeah, we're counting our blessings, and there's been a lot of outreach and support to reciprocate what we received 5 years ago, and send a lot of support and relief up to those families and residents up in Southwest Florida.
Now I have to ask you, like 2 days before the hurricane actually hit, and there was a question as to where it actually was going to land. Did you at one point say, "Why didn't I move? Why didn't I move?"
I don't understand your question. Why didn't I move?
Yeah, were you thinking to yourself, "I wish I had moved because I don't want to deal with what's coming in the next day or two"? Or are you guys more hardy than that? And it's like, it's just a hurricane, we'll be fine.
I think everybody kind of has, you know, and 5 years ago it was different. I had she was coming up on a year old, and so my husband was managing a restaurant at the time, and my in-laws have a home here, and so he said, you know, I'm gonna button up at the restaurant, and then tomorrow I'll button up their house and we'll leave on Thursday. I said, no sir, we're leaving Wednesday. I think one of my biggest fears is getting caught, because we have one road in and one road out. One of my biggest fears is getting caught stuck somewhere in traffic. And we had a lot of friends who, you know, that Irma 5 years ago was going up the center of the state and back and forth. And people wound up in, you know, South Carolina, Virginia, and then completely displaced, waiting to be able to get back home with roads and access and, you know, getting the electricity back on. So, you know, I know for our family personally, we tend to say category 3 and below, we have safe places to stay. It's terrifying to think about being in a place where it's so hot and how long you're going to have to live without electricity after the storm, you know, clean water. But category 3 and higher, then you start to have contingency plans. So yeah, you know, there's a lot of memes and jokes about hurricane parties and things like that. I don't think after you've been through a really destructive storm, you take it very lightly. But then again, you know, I was giving birth to my daughter when Hurricane Michael was passing, and I was getting texts from friends in Atlanta, and they were like, "You can come evacuate here," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So you always can tell how sensationalized storms are with the 24-hour news cycle when you start getting offers of, you know, evacuation safe havens from friends on the mainland. So
Oh yeah. Well, and Dr. Marnie says that she's in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and she got hit by Irma
oh
and
wow.
Maria.
Wow, Dr. Marnie, that's unbelievable. Yeah, that was a rough year. That was a really rough year.
It really was. So, and by the way, Jennifer and I are out of harm's way because we are in Seattle, and or in that area, and so we're very happy about that. And by the way, Blair, you're welcome to come up and visit us if you want to, you know, because we can always use another really cool place to buy healthy food.
Yeah. And we only have earthquakes and active volcanoes here, so no big deal, right?
Exactly. But it's been a while since we've had a major catastrophe. But they tell us a um, um, a 9 category earthquake is due our way sooner or later.
Oof.
So
You know, I'm pretty sure I've been hearing that for about 30 years. So I'm not holding my breath at this point, but I've been alive for Mount St. Helens and you know, the earthquake that centered in Pioneer Square in 2001 or 2. I was in Bali for that and found out from another tourist that my parents had been in an earthquake. But yeah, I mean, it's like it's all what you're used to, I think.
well, you know, it's interesting, Blair, because you talk about the 24-hour news cycle, and they do generally get really involved with that. And I was actually in Arkansas at my the place that I was working, and we were having a conference there, and somebody came up to me and said, "Did you hear about the earthquake?" I said, "What?" There was a 7.5 earthquake, and there's devastation, and we're in Seattle. And so then I tried to call, and of course the lines are busy, and you can't get through, and stuff. And so I was in a Motel 6 style hotel room in Siloam Springs, Arkansas, and there was nothing I could do to help them. That's the most helpless feeling in the world.
Yeah, that really stinks. It's and that even flashes back to, for me, 9/11. I was in college, and you know, and I knew my parents were traveling at the time. I couldn't get in touch with them. Still going to class. They canceled classes that morning, but that feeling of helplessness and powerlessness is just yucky.
It really is. And John is in New England, and they have to worry about nor'easters and snowstorms and and traffic. It seems like everybody gets to have traffic, except if you're, well, even in the Keys, because there's only one road in and out. I imagine you have your traffic jams there as well.
Yes, we do. You know, with tourism being our primary industry, um, we don't measure the seasons here in weather. We measure them in tourist season. You know, we have snowbird season, and then we have mini lobster season. And so yeah, our seasons are a little bit different. It's cool here for about 5 days out of the year.
That's it.
Otherwise, Yeah, it's funny. When I lived in New York City, when the weather got to 60 degrees, we were wearing shorts and flip-flops. And now that I live in the tropics, when the weather gets to 60 degrees, we're in closed-toed shoes and jeans and hoodies. So it's all relevant about the acclimation of your blood, right?
Well, exactly. But Jennifer will tell us that in Seattle, we set another record this year for the most days over 90 degrees in the history of the city. And that's
it's one of those times I'm really glad I live in a basement.
yes.
Because I didn't notice most of that, but I think we also set the most number of days without rain.
We did, and we're still in the middle of that.
Yeah, I just looked down at my screen. It says it's 72 degrees in Seattle right now, and I'm like, wait, like no, that's way too warm for this time of year here.
It is October 13th.
In the low 60s, maybe the 50s.
Yes, indeed, and times they be a changing for all of us, and that's why. But let's first of all, Jennifer, I want to let everybody know that you're an animal communicator, and you're going to be speaking, as is Blair. You're both going to. Oh, I'm going to be because Blair's moving. Nobody gets movement sickness and throw up or anything. But
I'm trying to make sure I don't get robbed, Kevin. I'm locking my front door.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's always a good idea. But Jennifer is an animal communicator of note, and she's written a chapter for the book, as has Blair. So first of all, Jennifer, what's your chapter going to be? Since the book is coming out today, and how can they pick it up if somebody wants to buy it?
You can go to Amazon.com and search for Behind the Power. And there are 2 books in the series. The one that dropped today is called Behind the Power, You're Not Crazy, You're Powerful. And I think the listing even says second book in the series. And my chapter this year is about how miserable I was in college and how long it took me to figure out that college just wasn't right for me. And how much shame I carried around that, because I'm the only grandchild in my generation that doesn't have a degree.
Oh, that would be something that you would have to, every Thanksgiving, you'd have to deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, like I have a JAG lawyer and 2 accountants, and I can't even keep track of like a filmmaker and all the things. And here's me, I didn't even finish a 2-year certificate. And not for lack of trying, I just was so miserable that I undermined myself at every turn. And now that I'm doing some work in, cognitive behavioral techniques with our coach, Allison Roberts, who put this book together, I understand a lot more about what was going on with me, is that it wasn't what I wanted to be doing, but I didn't know what else to do. And it was had been drummed into me from the youngest age that you got to go to college so you can get a good job and make more money and have a better life. So you got to go to college. And I was absolutely miserable.
So some of us are designed to go to college and some of us are not.
Yeah.
I was clearly not. But I will tell you this. I was in the restaurant business for about 20 years, and I had 5 hotel motel graduates from Washington State and Oregon State work for me. I never worked for one. Because I was general manager and they were my assistant managers, but I never worked for a guy who went to school. And I can't imagine. I think that's if you go to college to go into the hotel motel management program, you're there to party.
Well, it is Wazoo, right? I mean,
exactly.
It's a small college in a small town. I guess it's not that small of a college. I did visit there. I was going to go there, and I ended up changing my mind at the last minute and going to community college instead. So,
but Pullman is a small town.
Pullman is a very small town that loses most of its population in the summer when all the students go home.
Yes, and all the students go to Idaho, where the drinking age is less and so it's a whole ritual that they have over there.
Yeah, you can almost walk to Moscow, Idaho from Pullman if you're in good shape. It's like 7 or 8 miles. Yeah. Yeah, my cousin actually worked at the school in Moscow at the same time I was visiting Pullman. And so it was very interesting to us to see how far it was.
So they go over to Moscow, they walk to Moscow, and they stagger home.
Maybe.
So in any event, so you're talking about that, and what was the conclusion that you reached at the end of the chapter?
The end of the chapter was that, like college wasn't for me, and I'm okay with that now. I wasn't for a very, very long time, but I'm okay with that now. And had I gone to college, I probably wouldn't be an animal communicator now. And I freaking love my job. I know I can't say the other F word on the radio, but I really, really love my job. I get off almost every appointment I have, and I'm just like, I love my job.
That's the important part of life. And if you're not designed to go to college, and you've got to be regimented and all that kind of stuff, and if you don't want to, that works. Now, Blair, do you have a degree, Blair?
I do have a degree, and interestingly enough, it's in journalism. So go figure.
No, well, hold on, wait a minute. You have a degree in journalism, and you are the owner of a health food store.
Yep. My husband and I own a natural market and organic cafe, and I also am a wellness consultant for clients, helping them regain control of their health. So, yeah. It's interesting, Jennifer. I grew up, and it was never a question whether or not you were going to go to college. And I think there's certainly there's some value there, but it's no longer a predetermination about your career for the rest of your life. And I remember feeling like, what if I pick a major and I want to do something different? And I think higher education has evolved, and not that there's anything wrong with higher education. There's a lot of value there, but it has become so expensive. And, anyway, that's a whole nother topic. But yes, to answer your question, Kevin, my degree is in journalism, and I live in the Florida Keys, and I own a health food store, and I'm a wellness coach. So go figure.
Well, I for one have never been able to understand how we can expect an 18 to 22-year-old to actually have a clue about what they're going to do for the rest of their life. And so they have to pick a major 2 years in, and that's the major that they're going to have. My sister was going to be a teacher. She's never taught a day in her life. She was in retail her whole life.
And I was just having a conversation with a young man who was in here looking for some supplements, and especially down here in the Keys where it's very expensive to live. Even in a professional role, so many people have secondary or supplemental income. And someone told me and my husband several years ago, to live in the Keys, you either need to be highly specialized or highly diversified. And a lot of the people I know are highly diversified. We certainly fall into that category. He's a charter fisherman. He was a bar and restaurant manager before we purchased this business. And, we apply a lot of those skills from different roles. We met working in the restaurant business. And I jokingly told my father when I was getting ready to go to college that I wanted to be on the 10-year plan. I wanted to be a psychologist. And he said, not unless you're getting your doctorate, you're not. But I wanted to bartend my way through college because I knew that talking to people, bartending and listening to people's problems over the side of the bar would be such good training for to help support them in a therapeutic role. And if you don't set goals, or you have somebody squash your goals for strictly financial reasons from their own background or their story, the universe brings you to where you're supposed to be. So in the health coaching role, I'm helping people regain control of their health and lose weight, but there's so much psychology that's involved in that. And the universe brought me to work with Allison through health coaching, so that, you know, I had to do some deep personal work about my parents' role, or my parents' relationship, and how what I watched as a kid growing up was beginning to affect my current day relationship, not only with my spouse, who just so happens to be my business partner. That adds a whole nother level of complication there. And then, oh, by the way, we're raising this amazing, spunky, redheaded 6-year-old together. So
Who is one of the cutest kids I have ever seen. And I like animals better than people. So, like, me saying that she's a cute kid is really saying something. She's adorable.
She really is. I probably missed the boat on monetizing her when she was younger. You know, somebody said, you just call. I mean, there's probably like Old Navy or J. Crew in Miami. Just take her up there to do some modeling. But, you know, I want Let Them Be Little has been really kind of driven into me, because that it's such a short window. And I'm starting to understand that growing up in a dysfunctional home, with a mother who tried to protect from some, you know, family anger issues, and trying to put off divorce for as long as possible, you know, you wind up, I've heard this term parentified, but I really kind of lost that really precious window of childhood. So I want to make sure that I am doing the personal work on myself to recognize some behavior patterns that I have that might be negatively affecting my parent-child relationship, my spousal relationship, my employer-employee relationship, so I can recognize behavioral patterns within myself and like, ooh, that might not have been the kindest, most loving way to say that, you know? So I'm so grateful for this. It's been, you know, somebody described parenthood as the best, hardest job. And this work has been the best, hardest work. So yeah, that's
it. And it will get better, because, you know, she's 6 now. When she's in her teenage years, it might go south a little bit, but it does get better. And it's amazing how much smarter you get when she turns 30.
Yeah, you know, and I started, Kevin, it's really interesting because I went to the inaugural Behind the Power event a year ago.
Right.
I was looking at, you know, a pirate approaches 40, a pirate looks at 40. And, you know, I was such a pivotal time in my life where my 5-year-old and then my aging parents, like smack dab in that, you know, midlife, like reflecting on your childhood and then looking ahead to, you know, what your future is going to look like. And so I'm so grateful that I came to this work when I did. You know, it's amazing. The things that your kids do that drive you the craziest, you're like, oh, you got that from me. I got to work on that. So this, you know, she's so challenging, but this little mirror too. You know, I remember I lost my cool with her one night, and we were getting ready for bedtime, and I said, you know, Mommy, sorry that she yelled. You know, we talked about it, and I said, you know, I'm working on that. And she looked at me very frankly, and she said, well, you better work harder.
You know, one of my
laughing. I'm pretty sure I said that to my parents.
one of my favorite stories is, did you know who Neil Donald Walsh is?
Mm-hmm.
He wrote Conversations with God, and he's been around. He's an author that's written like 10 books. And one time he said, his son looked at him and he said, Dad, maybe you should read one of the books you've written.
From the mouths of babes.
You know, and we are all humans. And the interesting thing is my sons that are now 30 and 34, 31 and 34, they'll come up with stories that I have no earthly remembrance of. They'll say, Dad, you remember the time that you? I said, no. And I said, oh, it shaped my entire growing up life. And it's like, I am sorry, I didn't mean to, and stuff. So it is, you know, it's tough, and that's why Allison, she really gets in deep with her clients and working with you. I'd like for both of you just to talk a little bit about her and your experiences. of her, because she's brought all you guys together for Behind the Power. It's going to be a great event, which is happening next week. So it's really cool. So Jennifer, start with you.
So I had a little bit of introduction to cognitive behavioral techniques before I met Allison, but she really, like, because her group has a weekly class, and for a while we even had 2 classes a week, and then the one-on-ones to help you apply it personally. It would, like, I remember being like a month into her classes and being like, why don't they teach this in elementary school? I would be so much mentally healthier had I known this as a child. You know, I'm sure I would have screwed myself up in some other way, but it was like, how did I have to be in my 40s to learn this stuff that now I'm looking back at childhood and like things make so much more sense why I reacted that way. I really think that this stuff should be taught to everybody from a very young age. It's and Allison is the best kind of cheerleader. She knows when to kick you in the rear end and when to cheer you on. She has like a gift for knowing when to do that. And she is one of the first people that ever said to me, I love you because you breathe. And I honestly did not believe her for a really long time. But when it started to sink in, it was like, oh, somebody can love me just because I exist without any transactions attached to it. And once I started accepting that, I started loving other people just because they exist. And that's life-changing. It's completely life-changing.
I believe that there are no accidents in life, and your experiences that you've gone through up until your 40s, and then getting to meet Allison, all of that was by divine intervention, I believe, because now you're able to do what you are doing in a really positive way, and you're able to help people and their animals get along, and you can communicate. And like John said, that you are an excellent animal communicator, and it is your calling, and that's what you should be doing. And he also says that it's true unconditional love. What Allison is teaching you guys. Blair, what's your experience of Allison?
Well, like I said, Kevin, I do wellness consulting and health coaching, and I was actually in Atlanta for our annual conference last year. I learned about Allison's coaching through some clients and friends here locally. There's a pretty sizable contingent from the Florida Keys, actually.
It seems to be, yeah.
But something that she told me, even I think just last week, and I've told my therapist, like, it's interesting, Jennifer, that you talk about, the unconditional love for yourself, and then not believing that somebody could love you just because you breathe. I didn't realize how deeply rooted my trust issues were with other people, but mostly with myself. And so, her guidance, one of the things that I love and respect about Allison is it's firm. There's an intuitive component that I think is something that I can respect and feel and believe when coupled with a spiritual side too. So the cognitive behavioral therapy with the spiritual science and the intuition, it's such a beautiful combination. But she, I met her last year and we sat in Centennial Park and had, some discussions about goals and what I was looking to accomplish. And I, thinking small, it's like, well, I would never be at the level where I would need to hire a personal assistant. And she was like, well, why not? Why couldn't you be? So starting to dream and think bigger and believe in myself. And so many adults we aren't asked, what do you want? Yeah, you're right. At 18, 19, 20 years old, you have, even people who are like, I want to be a doctor. They take their first college biology class and they're like, I don't want to be a doctor at all. Or you learn how much medicine can be more about having to run a business.
Yeah.
And so I digress because I get so passionate about this stuff. But I met Allison last year. she has been kicking my booty, offering loving guidance. And I, it is a significant financial investment in yourself. And for a lot of people, you really have to dig deep to justify that. But I told her last week, like, thank you for working with me. Thank you for supporting me. And she said, I will continue fighting for you until you're willing to take the gloves. And that was so very powerful, because I had so much anger that I'm still working to process. And I've been fighting everybody else and beating up on myself. Well, instead of fighting for myself and realizing my value and loving myself. And then, like you said, Jennifer, when you love yourself and realize and can feel and understand what unconditional love is, it's amazing what the universe can open up for you, when you let go. Well, when I let go and stop trying to wrest control with my type A personality, and let go, and the universe just brings you these things, and then you begin to function from a place of gratitude. And even the challenges, you're like, that might have sucked, but thank you for giving me that teaching opportunity to learn. So it's so much about attitude and perspective and having this amazing community. I mean, I would never have met Jennifer Etwiler, and interacting with her last year, there's a very poignant moment that I can't wait to reflect on with her this year in Atlanta.
I remember I remember the first thing you said to me and the conversation we had. And it was about that your mother came with you to Behind the Power. And yeah, I remember it. Like, every time I talk to you, I think about that moment.
And she'll be here this year. I was telling Allison last week, she went home. She'll be here again this year, but she went home and she bought herself a car. And that may not seem significant, but my mom, like a lot of Southern women, because we're people pleasers, we want to make sure everybody else is happy and everybody else is taken care of. We're not significant. It's okay. We're back here just making sure everybody else is happy.
Everybody's got biscuits and gravy.
Are you fat? Are you hungry? Love you. Bless your heart.
And not just Southern women, lots of women have that.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Anyway, she went home from the event last year and she bought herself a car. And I remember seeing her be so proud that, she used, and she's a well-respected woman. People love and adore her. When we see and recognize and feel our own value, we are so freaking powerful, and we don't give ourselves enough credit.
That is so true. By the way, what's your chapter about in the book?
It is about healing some of that childhood trauma, not recognizing that divorce could be a traumatic experience, and making sure I heal some of those wounds so I don't repeat, breaking patterns of behavior so that I don't repeat some of those patterns that I learned from my parents, or lack of healthy communication, raising our voices and not speaking from a kind, loving place. It's just so my beautiful, spunky 6-year-old is not 40 years old and trying to unpack some unhealed trauma. So breaking generational cycles and trying to let go of perfection. It's a lot of stuff, Kevin. That's a thing. Like, we all say you start addressing one thing and it feels good and you're like, oh, okay, great. Well, it's like peeling away the layers of an onion. You're like, oh, crap, I gotta deal with that too.
and it's a never-ending process, it seems.
It is. But I love the word journey, because even as a health coach, people think like, oh, when I get to my target goal weight, then voila, my life is it's fixed, right? Well, losing weight can be, I love this, and it's something that I say all the time. Losing weight below the neck is easy. Losing weight above the neck is much harder. So that's
so good.
Yeah, that's where this work has really come in to support my own personal development, and in turn my business development, my personal relationship. So to answer your question in a nutshell, healing the trauma of being a child of divorce.
In Seattle, we have some major healthcare places where you can go and get your stomach stapled and that kind of thing. I know a number of people that have had that procedure done, and it's remarkable when they are really heavy and then they have that procedure and then they lose all the weight, but they haven't done the work above the neck, and then a lot of them gain all the weight back over time because they haven't dealt with the reason why they got heavy in the first place.
You know, it's funny. I have a client, and I coach clients all across the country. I used to live in. Speaking of hurricanes, I lived in the Panhandle of Florida, right out of college. 04, 05. That was when 05 Katrina hit New Orleans, and I have a pretty sizable contingent of law enforcement officers that I used to work with when I was utilizing my journalism degree. And I have a client in that area who I think his wife flew to Mexico to have gastric bypass surgery in the staples. But it's like people who come into our store now and they're looking for a silver bullet for weight loss. There are short-term surgical fixes for weight loss, but when you're not trained how to eat and understand the scientific function of your body, retraining your metabolism and drinking water. I'm a very active person. I drink a lot of coffee, but my exercise is for my mental wellness. I mean, the physical benefit is a beautiful side effect, but running and staying active for me has everything to do with mental health. But to your point, there are plenty of activities that can help you lose weight quickly. But until you learn how to retrain your metabolism and eat better to benefit your body, then it's just going to come back. And so I'm so passionate about helping people. Like I said, it's not about losing weight, but it's about regaining control of your health so that, I'm 40. And I see it. I've watched my parents and older family members. I even have a stepfather and uncle who's since passed, and a cousin who lives in Houston, and they're about the same age, 75. And it's the difference between waking up and going from coffee to beer to scotch, to getting up and being conscious of what you're eating, moving your body, drinking water, being aware of what you're eating. I just don't want the latter part of my life to be dictated by doctor's appointments and insurance coverage and medications. So if I can take the knowledge that I've learned and I'm continuing to learn and help provide that amazing set of tools to somebody else so they can, experience that freedom too. That's what drives me.
It's a beautiful thing. It's really is. And you can help a lot of people at the same time. As John says, Blair has grown so much since I first met her. She is just amazing. And by the way, I just want to give John a shout out. I think he's a pretty amazing dude.
He is. He really is.
He is. He's one of the members of our group that I honestly, every time we have an interactive class where Allison does like live coaching, I'm always so grateful for John because he's one of the first people that'll raise his hand, but he also he asks really good questions and the issues he's getting at often reflect things going on in my life that I didn't even think of applying that to whatever we're talking about. But John always asks questions that help my learning, probably more than anybody else that I can point to that's a member of our group. Probably because he's willing to raise his hand and ask the questions more than anybody else.
He's got either brave or has a death wish, one of the two.
Probably somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
Although, I know Allison and I've worked with her a little bit and she's been on the show several times. She's a darling individual, but she can be tough as nails.
Yes.
Through her background and where she came from and all the things that she's gone through. And we are all a collection of our experiences. And if we can get the help at the right time that we need. So if you're listening to this and you are feeling like you want to make a change in your life, I can't think of anybody better to do that with than Allison Roberts, since you can go to AllisonRoberts.com and you can book an appointment with her. She works all over the world, just like Blair does, and like Jennifer does. And also, Blair, I think that you are a real positive influence in your own right as well, as is Jennifer. I think you're all you guys in your chosen work that you're doing are sensational.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
And Jennifer works with people and their animals so that she can communicate with them, and that is what floats your boat, as it were, right?
It is absolutely what floats my boat. From the very first moment that I found out animal communication was a thing, I was like, holy cow, where do I sign up for that? It took me a really long time to get from like, wow, that's a thing, where do I sign up, to actually doing it professionally. But I got there, and that's the important part. And I absolutely love it. I can't imagine something I would love more.
So if somebody has got an issue with their animal, what types of things do you help them with?
Oh, all kinds of things. I had a dog literally tell me, like, tell mom thanks for doing this because it helped just to get my issue out on the table. I've had other pets where there's something going on with the blended family isn't working out, and the cat's kind of getting the butt of things, and how can we make this work? Just like the gamut. I mean, I've been on this show and talked about talking to my European house spiders before, so I'll talk to anything, and the issues are so varied. It's really hard to like say this is what I focus on.
Well, if you want to talk to spiders in my house, you better hurry. Because they're not going to be around long.
Well, mating season's over at this point, so we don't have so many spiders running around Seattle right now.
Ooh, just the thought of a spider running around just kind of gets me going. Anyway.
They're looking for mates. They're not worried about us. Just wave as they go by.
Okay, yeah, you bet. Yeah. So, but I get it. I understand. And but one thing that you said that I wanted to touch bases on, and that is that even in the animal world, you've got family issues, family dynamics within a family that has got multiple pets. Is that fair?
Oh yeah. The cat that I was just talking about, there's 2 cats and a dog living there, and it's a family that the 2 parents just blended, and between the human kids and the fur kids and the parents, and like those blending families affects the pets just like it does the people.
That's interesting, because there are people that think that animals are just a dumb animal, and you have in your work you have determined that that's just really not the case.
It absolutely not the case at all. I have had animals tell me things that I am like, I gotta be I can't be getting this right. I'm missing the boat on this. This is too obvious, or this has happened in my life, and like this can't be it. And the more I disbelieve and think that it's something else, the more likely that they're human is to say, yep, no, that's exactly what's going on. And it blows my mind every time. I'm like, I have got to learn to start trusting those really weird ones, but I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to, because they just, it's like, well, that's what happened to me when I was a kid. How can that be happening to a cat? But his mom went, yeah, no, that's exactly what's happening. And I was like, okay.
Well, there's a certain point that you'll get to where you'll trust everything that you say, because you set your ego aside, and it all comes through. Now, when it comes through for you, does it come through via pictures? Is it telepathy? How do you hear them?
I get a combination of things. Sometimes I actually see words spelled out behind my eyes. Sometimes I get pictures. Probably the most frequent is what I would call hearing it. It's more like hearing a thought. than it is like actually hearing something audible. But that's probably one of my more common ones for me. I've even been known to actually get the taste in my mouth. Especially when I ask a dog or a cat what their favorite treat is, I can usually tell you if it's beef or fish. Uh, it's a weird one, but it's one of the ways I get stuff.
So you actually can taste the dog treat or the cat treat or whatever it is.
Well, I've never tried one to see if it's an accurate
Oh, good point. Good point.
but it's like, what I think beef pate would taste like if it was human food, or salmon pate if it was human food. Yeah.
Awesome. By the way, I wanted to mention this, Blair, because you said it in passing, but your husband is a charter boat captain.
Yes.
That I cannot imagine how hard of a job that is, because they get up at what, like 3:00 in the morning, and to get the bait and to get everything all set up and lined up, and then they're out all day and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about fishermen, you have down here in the Keys, you have commercial fishermen. There's still a pretty sizable commercial fishing industry here, and then you have recreational fishermen. Even a lot of these recreational fishermen, Michael's so passionate about it. He grew up coming down here, and he loves being out on the water. He doesn't have as much. Well, our spirituality is different. He doesn't. I grew up in the South. My faith is strong. He doesn't go to church, but he feels a strong connection to a higher power of the universe out on the water. And even after working 12, 15-hour days, sometimes on their days off to go out and fish for fun, they're nuts. But yeah. I mean, people save all year to come spend a week to vacation down here. And so it can get lost in us when we're working all the time to be able to continue to live here. But then when you get out on the water, you're like, oh yeah, it's why I work a lot of hours and a gazillion jobs to be able to live in this beautiful place. So even as being property owners and hurricanes and paying ridiculous insurance rates, yes. I mean, they call Key West Key weird. We're all here. There's all kinds of taglines, but yeah, it's a hard life. It's a fun life, and it's one that takes a toll on your body. But he loves it. He's very passionate about what he does.
Yeah, and you also mentioned that, of course, you're married and you've got a 6-year-old, and your spiritual practices are a little bit different, but you are accepting of them, I'm assuming.
I mean, that's marriage, right, Kevin?
Well, if you want to stay that way, yeah. Some of us don't kind of make it to the finish line, but that's okay.
No, and it's not, marriage is not for the faint of heart. And again, that's been interesting to address and explore. And looking back at the model that I have for love and have for love and relationship. I said, after my parents divorced, they both remarried, and I said, instead of 2 good parents, I have 4 awesome parents. So, letting go of idealistic expectations about how things are supposed to look, I think, and being accepting of what they are, and looking at challenges as learning and teaching opportunities. It's not easy to be in business together. That's the challenge on a relationship. But instead of saying, I don't know if I can do this anymore, there's days where you just have to say, this is a period of growth. And so much of it is about a change in language and perspective and how you look at things.
One of the things that I'm doing, I've been doing this a while, and so I've got a catalog of literally hundreds and hundreds of interviews that I've done, and you were just talking about conversations and being married and stuff. I uncovered a conversation that I had with the author of the 5 Love Languages.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Chapman. And it was an interview that I did in 2003. And so we're bringing them back as and putting them back up as Positive Talk Radio Classics.
Oh,
Because
that's very cool, Kevin.
I've got tons of these things that are just sitting in a box, and they were on AM radio, and so I have I have CDs now. A CD, for those of you who don't know what that is, I'm sorry, but but anyway, so I'm taking those and bringing them back. But the information of Gary Chapman is his name,
There you
and
go.
the information of that book and the way he presents it during that interview is remarkable, and there's a great help for, and it's sold millions of books and stuff. So I'm bringing that back as well, because they need to be heard, and just like you two need to be heard, because you are two really cool people, and I'm glad that you found Allison to help you help yourself to become who you are, so that you can help others. That's how the world's going to change.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. And it's funny. You and I have talked about this before, Kevin, that like before the pandemic, I had no social contact outside of my household. So it was literally my mom and the cats, occasionally my stepmom. But that was about it. And I now have like this huge community, both in Allison's group and community outside of it. And I'm doing this animal communication thing. And, sometimes I think that because I live with my mom, she doesn't notice stuff, but just this week, she was in a meeting and was talking about how much I've changed in the 2 years. And like I have changed so much, even just what I would call the little things, like what Blair mentioned about when you run into a challenge and how you look at it, where it used to be the smallest thing was like this catastrophe for me. And now big things happen and I'm like, no, that's manageable. I can deal with that. That I can deal with that. That's okay. And I think one of the best conversations I ever had with Allison was, I was worried about something one day and she said, okay, so if that comes to pass, what's the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen? And I thought about it and I went, well, I'd have to do this, this, and that. And she said, but you could do it? And I was like, yeah, I could. That's doable. And she went, okay. And I went, okay, I don't need to worry about this anymore. And it's just small, like this little things add up to really big things in much shorter periods of time than you think they're going to. I can't imagine having the amount of growth that I've had in the last 2 years under any other circumstances. Like in 2 years, it would have been 10 or 15 or 20.
Well, you needed a push, but
Yeah.
now that you've had the push and you have recognized it, you can move forward with it. And Blair, the same thing. You can, and it's great to have that support behind you and with you.
Yes.
And that's really helpful. But I am a firm believer, and I told my son this. He's 34 years old, and last year at this time, I said to him, he was in a 2-bedroom apartment, or excuse me, a 1-bedroom apartment that he hated because he hated his neighbors. And he was in a job he didn't like, and he didn't have a girlfriend, and so none of this was going well. And fast forward a year, and I said, this is what's going to happen for you. I said, you take it in a positive way, you be grateful for your every day, and great things are going to happen for you. Well, he now has a house in down in Roy, which is way down south by Olympia, and I don't go down there anyway. But down in Roy, he left that job, and he has a job that they think he walks on water because he does his job exceedingly well. So he's got a wonderful outlook about that, and now he's got a girlfriend and with 2 kids, and so he's now got a whole family in 1 year. All of those things have changed for him, and it is a remarkable thing to see how quickly your life can change if you're open to it. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
1,000%.
especially if I think one of the biggest pivots that I made, and you kind of alluded to this a little bit in talking about your son, is I used to focus on the negative, like everything. I focused on the negative, and I would look at that negative thing and imagine how much worse it could get. And in some ways, it was a really easy pivot to start focusing on the positive. And in other ways, it was really, really hard because you have to be disciplined about it. And that was not one of my traits that I was really good at when I started this. But I now catch myself when I focus on the negative, and it's like, wait, stop that. Like, what's the good in this? And let's focus on that. And I feel so much better. And I can imagine the good things happening that I never used to be able to imagine.
Yeah, well, if you can imagine my son, who was a negative thinker and was always, this is wrong and woe is me, and his father has a show called Positive Talk Radio, and he thinks I'm crazy because I, generally speaking, like, no, be positive. You can do this. It's going to change. It's going to work. No, it's not. No. And so now I say, so how was your life today? And he says, oh, it's really pretty good. And I said, do you have anything you'd like to tell me? Like, and he says, no, Dad, I don't. Okay, fine. But it's because he's a big boy and he can do what he likes. But we all, and I firmly believe this, and you guys know it because you've lived it. We can all make huge changes in our life if we choose to.
Yes. Yep.
And we're going to run out of time. And first of all, I want to thank both of you on very short notice for coming and doing this. This has been a very good episode, I think. What do you think?
Thank you. I've enjoyed the heck out of it. I always enjoy being here with you, Kevin.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you greatly. And you know what I want to do? I want to give you a present. Because I do the shows from my house, but there is something about going to the studio for the KKNW studios, which is in Factoria, which is real close to us. And it's on the 5th story of a beautiful building. And there are 5 radio stations there, and there are all these people wandering around. And I want you and I to do a show from the studio.
Oh, I would love that. How exciting.
It is a wonderful experience to do if you've never done it before, because it's completely out of normal for anybody. And it would be, and there's the board operators there, and we all have a good time. So I want to give you that. And so the next, we need to talk, and we need to book that and set that up.
I will take you up on that 100%.
And Blair, the next time you come to Seattle, you're welcome to stay with Jennifer. Can't stay with me. I have a 1-bedroom. This is 1 bedroom. I have the other bedroom, and you can't stay there.
I haven't been to Seattle since 2011. My husband and I did a cross country road trip. I said I wanted to do that, and I think it's due time to get back out to the West Coast.
And I was in Arkansas for working there, and they call us the left coast.
Yes. Well, anything west of the Mississippi is out west.
Yes.
Yeah.
They call us the left coast because of our politics.
I learned when we were doing our road trip and when I used to do IT shows that they call it please, I'm sorry to the Midwestern states, but they call it the flyover states, and yeah. But the Pacific Northwest is such a beautiful place. And I think, I think getting out there to see the contingent at Etwiler and all the people in our community who are up there in the Pacific Northwest, it's going to be time. You guys are heading to Atlanta next week, so eventually we're going to have to facilitate something where we get out there to the left coast. I'll take it.
You're going to have a party. And one of the things that we're working on doing is doing something called Positive Talk Live. So when I put that together, and I'd love to have you guys be part of it and stuff. It's going to take a while to put that together, but because I'm slow and old. But other than that, but I want to give you guys a chance. First of all, we'll start with Jennifer, and I'm going to step aside, and you have an opportunity to talk to the people that are listening now and those that are going to be listening later forever. Tell them anything that you'd like them to know.
No
pressure, by the way.
I think that the biggest thing that I'm feeling called to say is that it doesn't matter what your situation is, there is always hope. And I am absolutely proof positive of that. 2 years ago, I was literally lying in bed watching TV 23 hours a day when I wasn't sleeping. And I might leave the house once every month or two, maybe. And here I am now. I've written chapters in 2 books. I talk to animals, which has been a lifelong dream. I am going to Atlanta for the 3rd time in a year to give my 2nd speech on stage. It's kind of unreal, but anything is possible.
And by the way, flying alone from Seattle to Atlanta and back that takes a lot of intestinal fortitude. Congratulations, and I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
Blair?
Kevin, to pick up on something we were talking about, I have one teeny tiny tattoo. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, I swore that I was not a big tattoo person. It's a palm tree. I got it with some friends before. Somebody that used to live here was a big inspirational part of my life. It has some meaning, flexibility, and being able to withstand the storms. But I have all these little catchphrases that I kind of use to remind myself throughout the day, and talking about getting stuck in a negative mindset. Understanding, number one, that's a natural human behavior to get stuck in that negative mindset, but then recognizing that where the mind goes, energy flows. And so we're thinking about all the stuff that doesn't work. Stuff won't work. And it is a choice every single day when we get up, what we say to ourselves first thing in the morning. If it's, oh, here we go again. Or, thank goodness I woke up today. And there's going to be challenges, but how am I going to overcome them and be grateful? And it's a choice every single day. And it does take discipline, doesn't it, Jennifer? But
yeah,
it's so worth it. It takes discipline, and it's not perfect. And I've heard from other healthcare practitioners locally, like, oh, I'm trying to refer a client to you, but they can't relate because you're young and you're fit. And it's so funny, what people see, how they perceive you, but that's none of my business. But I'm so grateful to be able to talk with you, Kevin, to know Jennifer, to be doing this work. You're worth it. If you're stuck and you're feeling helpless and you're feeling stuck in a negative mindset and things just aren't going to work out for you, they can, and they will. And it may not be the way that you envision, but the universe does continuously conspire in our favor when we're open to it and when we believe it. So where the mind goes, energy flows. Make sure that your mind is focusing on the good, because there is always good. People say, how's your day going? Oh, this and that. And that. I'm like, well, it beats the alternative, doesn't it? So anyway, so much gratitude for the opportunity to be here, Kevin, and to be part of this network and to share. Thank you for what you're doing for bringing people together on Positive Talk Radio.
I'm a trying, and this is you guys are doing some great work, and I really appreciate it. One of the sayings that people use all the time that I wish people would get rid of from their vocabulary is when you say, "How you doing today?" "I'm not too bad." What the hell does that mean? I'm not too bad. That means I'm still alive. Is that the reference you're using? Why can't you say I'm great? I'm doing better every day.
Mm-hmm.
And Christine, who's been hanging around, just being quiet. Congratulations for being best-selling authors. The book is released today. It's Behind the Power 2. They can go to Amazon and anywhere to get it, right?
Yep. And it's 99 cents today only. Then it'll go up. So if you have any thoughts about getting it, go grab it today. It's less than $1.
99 cents, and go to AllisonRoberts.com and you can buy it from there, for heaven's sakes. If it's for sale there too, right?
There should at least be a link to the book on the website.
Cool. Well, and you guys have fly carefully, Jennifer, and Blair, you fly carefully because I know you're going north. And you guys have an awesome time next week. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Hey,
It will be.
thanks
Thank you so much, Kevin.
And will you guys come back and even though the event's over, will you come back and see me from time to time? I get lonesome.
Oh yeah. You're gonna have a hard time getting rid of us after the last couple months.
True story.
Well, I appreciate the heck out of you guys, and together we can we can change the world.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that. So we've been talking to Jennifer Etwiler and Blair Shiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
And thank you guys. Stay right there. I'll be right back. Hey, thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of PositiveTalkRadio.net. Please visit our website, oddly named PositiveTalkRadio.net, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we got.